Your attention, masters, mistresses. All systems functional for the Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, this is Rich McDonald, and I play Commander David Mason on Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And you're listening to Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, it's James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi and
Master Plo Koon
in Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Everything Geek, the podcast.
Hey, it's Leif Ganfert. I played Uncle Ben's killer in The Amazing Spider-Man, and you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast.
Hello, I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldovar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek podcast.
You're listening to the Everything Geek podcast, bringing you interviews from your favorite films and TV shows every week, and all of the latest news. Here's your host, Ruari Williamson.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast. I'm your host Ruari, and joining me today is a very special guest. We have actor Brett Stanfield, who played one of Superman's soldiers and a Metropolis Paramedic in Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, and Michael Alexander in Supreme Justice with Judge Karen. Brett, how are you?
Good,
I'm very well, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you join us on the podcast today.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks.
You're
for
very
having
welcome.
me.
So, getting right into my questions for you, Brett. How did you decide you wanted to become an actor?
I was always an actor. Like in high school, I was in choir and musicals and stuff like that. I've kind of always been drawn to the performance arts. I was, a musician as well. That was kind of my first passion. I'm a drummer, played in some bands and stuff, and I guess later in life, just kind of caught the bug to be an actor, and so I just got out there and tried to make it happen. And here I am.
Yeah, here you are indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So,
yeah, it's a crazy business, and it's something that takes practice, and I'm always learning and trying to keep my skills sharpened and whatnot. So, being that I've kind of came into it later in life, I guess, for an actor, it's definitely different kind of experience. You kind of have to deal with a lot more pressures of not starting as a younger man or whatever, but it's been fun ride.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, like, a lot of people, think, from a young age they want to become an actor, and you're saying you didn't actually get into the industry until, later in life. So,
right.
If you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
what age would you say you were when you first got into the industry?
About 30.
Okay, that is interesting because most people, would get into the industry, that knew they wanted to be an actor in their 20s, I think. So,
Exactly.
That is actually
Definitely.
very interesting. Thank you for that. So,
no
moving
problem.
on to my second question, how were you originally cast in Batman vs. Superman?
Well, the first role that I actually did in Batman vs. Superman was the Metropolis Paramedic, and we filmed that scene, which was amazing. It was a long, I think, 13-hour day, and it got cut down to just seconds worth of footage in the final cut of the film. But after that, few weeks later, they contacted me again and asked if I wanted to play another role, which I really didn't know what it was at the time. And I said, sure. And they had me come in for the fitting. And that's when I saw what it was. And, you know, being a comic book fan, actually myself, I was pretty intrigued when I saw this costume, you know, hanging up in the room. I'm like, what is that? You know, and I had never seen anything like that, you know, in Superman before. But they were very secretive about who could see me in the costume that day. You know, there's a bunch of extras there getting fitted for other scenes and stuff. And so it was really cool. Even, you know, the days on set, you know, anytime we walked out of the set, I had to cover up with this robe so nobody on set could see me in the costume. So they were obviously trying to keep it pretty secretive. And the people in the costume department were really excited about that role and whatnot. So it was a really cool opportunity to be part of. And then, you know, they made a toy out of it later, and it was a trip for sure.
Yeah.
So
it must feel pretty weird having a toy of yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird.
Yeah, but of course it's understandable, you know, how secretive they were about the Superman soldiers, because, I mean, in the film itself,
right.
It is, you know, a vision, you know, rather than something actually happening, but, like, anyone who sees soldiers with Superman's logo on the side, there are going to be questions.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it was really, really cool, and, I mean, that was kind of the highlight of my life there, getting to work that day with Superman and, you know, Batman in real life, like standing next to you. It was pretty cool. So
yeah,
I enjoyed it.
That's good. And it's funny because, of course, with the outfit, you know, your face is covered up. Like, secretly, any of the Superman soldier actors, including yourself, could be freaking out at standing next to Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck, and no one would know.
Exactly. Yeah. And that, you know, it was another long, hot day. I remember in those costumes and doing it over and over again, kneeling and whatnot. And Zack Snyder, he uses one camera, so each shot has to be reset so that they can shoot it from separate angles. So it was a pretty long, tedious process getting all those shots in. But, you know, I was amazed, you know, because it was like it was 2 summers ago that we shot, you know, for that film. And when the first trailer came out, that scene was in there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm in the first trailer. So that was pretty cool. And it seemed like every trailer leading up to it, it kept showing scenes of that soldier, which, you know, everybody was like, who are these people? And so it was definitely cool to be part of that, and everybody talking about it on the internet, and to kind of know what was going on and not being able to say anything and all that stuff. So it was cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So,
what'd you think?
Yeah, I thought it was great. Yeah.
I think that scene was kind of the you know, it was very interesting. Ended up being pretty pivotal to the whole movie, and I think, you know, the movie's coming up, moving forward too. I think there's a lot of questions and mystery surrounding what happened there. So
definitely. And I think
cool.
I think what's really great about that scene in particular is that it's one that makes people think. It's not one that gives people the answers to everything. It just raises questions and, like, leaves them to be answered another time. And, you know, those kind of scenes are actually really, you know, interesting, I find. So, you know, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So, moving on to my next question, and you touched on it a little bit there, but you got to have scenes with Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, and Jesse Eisenberg, who of course played Lex Luthor as well. in Batman versus Superman.
Mhm.
What was it like working with the three of them?
It was great. I mean, all three of them were very professional, very nice guys, and um, you can tell that they're really dedicated to making the film better, and seasoned actors and know how to pull a performance, out from inside of them. And it was just kind of cool to see that happen. I think especially with like Henry Cavill, the fact that he has, like he's British and he can just, in a split second turn that American accent on, and then in between takes he just goes back to his normal way of speaking. I just thought that was really cool. And he seemed like a really humble guy and joked around a little bit with us and stuff. So it was cool.
It's a little scary when that happens, isn't it? Like an actor is speaking in one accent, the character's accent, for so long, and then they switch back to their normal accent,
Right. Yeah. It's great. I mean, he's a great actor, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. He's perfect in that Superman role. But that was kind of, surreal for me. Like, I just remember being there in that moment and just, telling myself, like, you got to soak this all in. Like, you're actually standing next to Batman and Superman in real life. Like this, it's never going to get better than this. It was cool. Got to kind of pinch yourself to make sure you're not dreaming.
Yeah. Okay, it's official. I joked a few minutes ago someone was probably freaking out underneath the outfit where you can't see their face. I think you were freaking out and no one knew.
Exactly, yeah. Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So, moving on to my fourth question. Where did you shoot the Vision and LexCorp scenes respectively? Is there anything memorable you remember in particular from working on either location?
The Vision scenes were shot, some of them were shot out in a gravel pit in Oxford, Michigan, and then the cave scene was shot in the inside the studio there, Michigan Motion Picture Studios. And the LexCorp scene, they made LexCorp at an old GM factory, I believe it was. And I think the LexCorp scene was probably the most memorable, just the way that they transformed the inside of there to look like this really cool, trendy office with a basketball court and video games and all that stuff. I mean, you saw it in some of the earlier scenes in the movie when he was talking with the senators and whatnot. And that was really cool because it was, Batman had broken in, obviously, and shot up the place and, gotten into it with some of the security guys and stolen the kryptonite. So it was just a real dramatic scene, the way that they played it out and had, Lex show up and walk through all dramatic and, assess the damage and then realize that, his kryptonite had been stolen. I think, a lot of that stuff had been cut for the theatrical release, but I'm hoping that scene is probably going to be extended, hopefully in the Blu-ray release. I heard they're going to add some extra time to it. So, but it was cool, seeing the stunt double ride up on the bike, and then, Jesse got off and, like put him in place right there where the stunt driver stopped the bike, and then he got off and took his helmet off and kind of walked through, and I kind of start out, standing next to him and then kind of cross in front of him as he walks through the door. So it was cool that made the final cut for the theatrical release.
definitely. And fingers crossed, of course, that'll be slightly longer in the, in the home release. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to my fifth question, what was the overall experience like working with the cast and crew of Batman vs Superman? Would you like to work with them again?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was great. Everybody was great, and like they were very helpful. All the way down to the wardrobe department and the crew, and everybody was great. I mean, Zack Snyder, you can just tell that he has this huge vision in mind and loves the production side of it and really puts his all into it. But yeah, the overall experience, I mean, couldn't have been better for me as far as my first real big studio film that I worked on. And it was just amazing to see everything that went into it, just down to the smallest of details.
Yeah, and of course, it's not a bad way to start off getting into, big budget movies by by appearing in a DC Comics movie. That's what we'll get into in a moment. You're a big DC Comics fan yourself, of course.
Yeah. It's kind of like, where do you go from here? Yeah. But hopefully there'll be more like that.
Yeah, definitely. It's like already you're thinking, what could actually be better than this?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Like, I've got so many years to live, and I don't think it's going to get better.
Yeah, but like you said, it's a good way to start out, and so it's
yeah, of course. So moving on to my next question, as a big fan of the DC Comics yourself, what stories are you hoping to see on screen in the DC cinematic universe, and what characters are you most excited about seeing in the movies?
Yeah, I'm really excited for Suicide Squad actually right now. I think that movie looks incredible. Can't wait to see Jared Leto's Joker and how it all kind of ties together. I'm hoping that they, do tie it in so that it kind of keeps the momentum going into the next film, which I believe is Wonder Woman and then Justice League. I know Batman's in it. We've seen that already, but I'm interested to see if they talk more about the sidekick stuff. The Robin costume in the Batcave, whether that was Dick Grayson or Jason Todd. I know they keep showing that Clint Eastwood's son, Scott Eastwood, is in the movie, and I'm curious to see if maybe he ends up being Dick Grayson. Now that in the comics, I know that they have him as like a super spy kind of character. So I don't know. There's a lot to look forward to, and I think that the Aquaman stuff is exciting. I'm excited to see more of that. I don't know. It's just exciting in general. It's gonna be cool to see all those movies come out. And what I'm hoping for the most is that we see Green Lantern sooner than later. I know that he hasn't been cast or anything, and his film doesn't come out till like 2020. But in my opinion, he needs to be in the Justice League. So I'm hoping that he gets introduced soon.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
So my final question for you, Brett, is do you have any upcoming acting roles or any other projects coming up that you would like to talk about?
Currently I don't have anything coming up. I'm auditioning for a lot of stuff right now. I just did work on a short film for a faith-based production company. It should be coming out sometime this month. I'm doing a lot of training right now at the Actors Loft in Royal Oak, Michigan, and just kind of really focusing on taking my career to the next level and getting more lead and principal roles. So it's kind of where I'm at right now, just doing a lot of auditioning and practicing and kind of taking, the momentum here of the things I've been in and turning it into a bigger career. So
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'll be sure to keep an eye out for the short film that you mentioned, and fingers crossed that you do land some principal roles very soon.
Thank you.
So that's all of my questions for you today, Brett. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for
and
having me.
hopefully I can talk to you again at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so too.
Definitely. Maybe once you've landed some principal roles.
Yeah, there you go.
So now we both have to keep our fingers crossed on that. Yeah.
Right, yep.
Yeah. So I'll talk to you again soon, Brett. Thanks again for joining me.
All right. Yep. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Yep. Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right. Bye.
So that's it for this week's show. So make sure to check out our podcast links. Check out our website, website.everythinggeekpodcast.com/EGP. Check out our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast. Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/everythinggeekp. Check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/official-everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our Mixcloud profile, www.mixcloud.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Email us at the below email, everythinggeekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our companion podcast, Everything Geek Comiccast, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekcomiccast. Make sure to check out the host's YouTube channels. Mine is www.youtube.com/user/separatist-destroyers. Check out Brett Stanfield on Twitter, twitter.com/BrettStanfield1. And check out Channel 138 we broadcast live from, www.channel138.com. So geeks out, everyone.
What CGI has done to us is has allowed us to go beyond where we used to go. However, now this is a very personal answer, is I'm a huge fan of practical. I think we have a tendency to go a little bit beyond.
From the work that I do, we're really trying to take advantage of what's going on in the web space and figure out how to utilize kind of the incredible resource that is the internet to bring more narrative content